Good morning. Welcome to Trinity County Board of Supervisors on September 4th, Wednesday. Please join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a quick announcement. Supervisor Brown has gotten stuck in some construction traffic downriver, but he is on his way. So he apologized for his tardiness. We will move into public comment. This time is for information from the public on matters not appearing on the agenda. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. Good morning, John.
Good morning. I went looking for some minutes and agendas prior to 2017. There used to be a page that you could go to, but it's no longer online, and I'd like it to be put back on because I don't want to have to go to the admin office and go through all their piles of stuff to find out what I'm looking for, because it's a lot easier to do it online.
It's there.
All right, we'll look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Oops. Supervisor Chadwick.
Okay, Madam Chair, I had a conversation earlier with Tina. I too was on the Novus agenda and I explained it to Tina. So maybe we can do some type of follow-up. I know it's not her responsibility to make sure, but I tried to access outside of the dates that were shown, and every time I put in the dates, it popped up the current date. So there is some type of glitch, so maybe IT, we can follow up. But I spent a lot of hours just really frustrated, so I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So I don't know, Tina, I don't know how to follow up on that. So.
Oh, you may already know the answer.
So there was
You might
a
want to be
program, that was using older minutes and agendas, and it went away. So we no longer have it. That's why. And that's why we put the note to contact admin and we need something older than 27.
Oh, all right.
Well, I actually was just going back 6 months prior. It was from the beginning of the year. It doesn't have, it only has very recent board members. So we'll look at it together.
Okay.
So.
I don't have access to that. We only have from this agenda started
Right.
until now. And the previous program was, the company warned us they were going out of business and they're
Okay. Well, we'll dig through
And it was
all of this.
internet-wide.
Internet right. Thank you. Good morning, Kay.
Kate Graves from Lewiston. So, as you guys know, Peony versus Finley and Ware versus White are in the appellate court. And hopefully, we all knew it had to go to the appellate court because you cannot get justice in Trinity County. When you have your then appointed clerk assessor recorder sit right next to a judge under oath and admit that she counterfeited ballots. She didn't keep track of them. They were in no way legal. And the judge completely ignores what she said, and in her ruling just mumbles something about there was questions about watermarks and tabs. Jan White counterfeited ballots, and she admitted it. And if you want to read code and see how completely she counterfeited ballots, you can go get the transcripts now because the attorney, bless his heart, paid out of his own pocket and made them, and they're now public and available. It's the 22nd and 23rd of January, I believe, of 2019 for Peony versus Finley. So I don't know, you guys should have known, and apparently you did know way ahead of time that the archived agendas were going to go away. This is completely unacceptable. They should be made available to the public, and there should be no break in it, and I don't care what your reasons are. If you think this is going to make it harder for people to research from home, what you guys have done in the past with appropriating money for a private citizen for a law firm, and then having county counsel be the law firm that should have never been sitting there, should have never been talking, never joined in the case. If you know even the slightest bit about law and election law, it's shocking. And so I'm glad it's going to 3 judges. It'll be 6 judges because it'll be 3 each for each case, and possibly even more if they do the money appropriation separately, because that is also in the appellate court. You guys are going off a cliff. You've dug yourself into a deep hole, and if you guys want to keep digging and listen to Margaret Long and Prentice Long and Epperson, go ahead. But now it's in the appellate court, and if you think you're going to hide whatever from the public with hiding the archived agendas, I already have them, people already have them, the FBI already has them, the DOJ already has them, the state has them but don't care, your appointed district attorney doesn't care, but right now we're going with the feds. And if you want to know how far it's gone, you can contact the guy who calls himself Robert Jackson in Reading. You can contact Mike Ware and see who he's talking to, and find out for yourself, because I don't expect you to believe me, but you can go look at the transcripts and you can contact the FBI yourself. Thank you.
Supervisor Chandler? All right. Her lights, I'm not able to, because I don't know if she sent me a... Okay, so lights aren't going off, by the way. All right. Good morning.
Jim Stoll out of Hayport, California. You supervisors are violating the California Constitution, United States Constitution, by not upholding and defending the Constitution of the state of California and the United States Constitution. I brought to you several articles about not being able to serve taxes to the people if you're a private citizen, and you're allowing these doctors to tax the public, and it's illegal. It's unconstitutional. Look it up in the Constitution of California, United States Constitution, 1918 edition. It says the same as it does in 1913, or 2013, excuse me. No, 19. Anyway, also the tax is an important deal for you to look up in the Constitution about the 30-year period that is presumed to be paid. That's a benefit to the public for staying on their property and paying their taxes and not having a lien put against their property. I think you should look into that. I'd like to get this put on the agenda to warn it be talked about, and I spent $130 for running back and forth here on gasoline from Hayport over Hayport Summit, and I'm getting nowhere with you. I'd like to have it put on the agenda. Thank you.
So, Margaret and Richard, I think I had requested that perhaps maybe there's some information missing that you could work with Jim offline and see how that helps. Thank you. All right, moving on to presentations. 1.1, present 2019 Annual Employee Safety Awards to General Service Facilities Operations Superintendent Michael Webster and Department of Transportation's Road Division. No fiscal impact. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Board. Rebecca Cooper, Loss Prevention Specialist, Risk Management. So each year, Trindle Insurance Fund sponsors the annual safety award for each of their 11 member counties. Trinity County Risk Management, with the overall vote from the Department Safety Representative Committee, are encouraged to recognize an individual employee and/or a whole department for their efforts in workplace safety for demonstrating one or more of the following traits listed below: a high level of safety awareness in day-to-day work tasks, high level of participation in the county's loss prevention program, a notable safety suggestion suggestion adopted by the member county, or an identification of a workplace safety hazard or unsafe work practice or procedure. Before I recognize our individual, I'd like to point out that Tony Miller is here today, representing Trindle Insurance Fund as our safety officer for the county. It was a familiar face. But with that, in recognizing Michael T. Webster, being new to his role as the facility operations superintendent for general services, Michael has proven in the last year that safety is of the utmost importance to him. Michael is very prompt in responding to reported safety hazards to his department. One of many examples of Mike's prompt responsiveness is when a pothole in the courthouse parking lot was reported to risk management. It was filled and mitigated within a half an hour of our department notifying him of the hazard. I have also received many compliments from multiple departments on Michael's will to ensure that issues are remediated as soon as possible. Michael takes safety seriously as a leader, and you can see it radiate through his department. Michael's drive to excel in safety and keep our facilities in the best condition he can is well noticed. On behalf of risk management, we appreciate you and want to congratulate you on being Trinity County's 2019 Annual Safety Award winner for your efforts in loss prevention program. Two presentations. I was meant to say that again. So our second award winner, as I mentioned, we recognize an individual and or a whole department. So this year we recognize both. So recognizing our whole department for the road division of the Department of Transportation. Employees within the road division face the potential for high risk. They are working in inclement weather, operating heavy equipment, chip sealing our roads, replacing signs, conducting traffic control, and much more. The road division has been responsible for communicating when there is a hazard at one of their yards or work sites and reports it to risk management in a timely manner. They also ensure the remediation of the hazard is promptly addressed. All employees have portrayed the will to go above and beyond in safety. The road division completed a total of 120 safety meetings last year when they are only required to conduct 96 between 5 yards. During our biannual inspections this past year, the High and Palm and Hawkins Bar yards had no corrections needed at either site. This means that the sites had no hazards. They were clean and everything was in working order. Lastly, for FY 2018-19 fiscal year, the department only had one on-the-job injury. That is truly outstanding for being in the construction industry. It is very apparent to risk management that the leaders in this department are ensuring that all staff, including themselves, make safety a priority. And for that, we would like to congratulate the entire road division on the 2019 Annual Safety Award for striving to be above the bar and consistently being involved in loss prevention day-to-day tasks.
All right, thank you, Risk Management. All right. All right, moving calendar. These items include routine non-controversial matters and will be acted upon the board by one roll call motion. A member of the board, staff, or public may request an item be pulled and considered separately. Board members. All right. Supervisor?
Nope.
Members of the public?
Okay, Graves, I'd like to pull 2.6.
All right. I will entertain a motion for the remainder.
Motion to approve as presented consent.
Second.
All right.
Supervisor Grove?
Aye.
Supervisor Benton?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Chadwick?
Aye.
Supervisor Morris?
Aye. Thank you. All right, item 2.6, approve the regular meeting minutes of August 20th, 2019 as submitted by the deputy clerk. No fiscal impact. Your
Okay,
question?
Graves from Lewiston, it's a comment. Once again, I'm gonna bring up the fact that I don't know, I'm guessing Margaret Long is telling you that your legal board minutes are legal. They've deteriorated in information over to the years until I can't wait for it to be a blank sheet of paper. You've taken off, you don't have what people say in their comments. You evaluate staff. You do, and you give direction to staff in closed session, you evaluate employees, and you never report out. Direction given to staff, you tell us what the direction was. I mean, even the basics you guys aren't telling us. And to make matters worse, now you retroactively change your agendas by adding information that was given to you during the board meetings and retroactively putting it in your agendas. And as Margaret Long says, at the pleasure of the board. This is your guys' stuff. All of this actually is your guys'. The planning department, the building department, the road department, all of this falls on you guys' shoulders. I don't know why you act like it has little or nothing to do with you guys. Your agendas are definitely yours. And this is yours. I don't care what Margaret Long's telling you, this is yours. It's up to you guys to make sure they're legal. And even if it is legal, even by some stretch of the imagination this is illegal, how does this serve the public? How does this serve the public who can't make it to the meetings to find out who said what and who did what? Because Margaret Long came this close to saying the videotape is our meetings. But she pulled that one out of the hat. People are not getting information on what's happening with their local government, and you guys are bearing it more and more for absolutely no reason. I don't know why you're stingy with the public information. I mean, just the basics. Who spoke, what was said, direction given to staff, what it was. I mean, the basics of what every other responsible government entity's minutes include. Thank you.
I remember one time when,
Are you still commenting on 2.6?
yes, I am.
Okay.
I remember one time when the planning department brought some stuff here and Keith Groves was upset because they didn't have the minutes of their meeting. So I suggested to John Jolositz at the time to use your minutes as an example. And I know Keith would not have liked that.
All right, with that. Oh, do I have one more on 2.6?
No, was there an opportunity to pull things out of the consent agenda? We didn't.
Yeah, you missed it.
I missed it.
All right, 2.6. Any approval? Move to deny?
Motion to approve as presented. 2.6.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Oh, did you have, sorry, that was a question on screen.
Well, I would like to have some discussion or an open discussion of the stance of the board and Margaret's view of this, put on an agenda.
Okay.
That's the pleasure of
And then I'll follow up with Margaret on this. All right, so, all in favor of 2.6?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so moved. Item 2.9, approve the amendment number 1 to the agreement with Ascent Environmental to include workshops on the cannabis program, environmental report, California Environmental Quality Act training, and to increase the maximum cost of $34,132 to provide cannabis program, California Environmental Quality Act document development and support services. No impact to the general fund, additional $34,132 for a total of $243,647 from the cannabis department. All right, Supervisor Chadwick, I believe you pulled this one.
Yes, thank you. Hi. I pulled it to have a better understanding of the price that was attached to this. I'm all in favor of the education. I'm really thrilled to see it, but I just feel like the expenditure is pretty high. So I was hoping you could walk me through the budget and how that figure came about.
Kim Hunter, Director of Planning and Building and Planning. Yes, the budget includes is the First Amendment of the contract, and as we've gotten farther into the EIR process, the draft EIR comments have been received after analyzing those comments and evaluating the issues that were brought up in the comment period. Realized that additional outreach was necessary, and so that outreach includes a planning commission meeting in Hayfork on I believe it's the 25th of the month, and then another workshop with the Board of Supervisors, I believe October 5th. Apologize for the calendar in front of me. And that is to get additional comments from the public and feedback on the draft EIR. As part of that process, staff did go ahead and talk to Ascent Environmental and work with them also on another workshop. So there's 3 workshops, so coming back with one plan for just a CEQA basic course, CEQA 101, if you will. That would be held in a special meeting next Thursday. I feel like I'm getting all my dates wrong.
Next Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 11th.
The joint.
Yes, and that'll be a joint meeting with the planning commission and the board. So these are all workshops to, number one, to the basics for CEQA as we go into a very, what could be a very complicated process with the EIR, but also to lay that groundwork next Wednesday for CEQA, for everybody, for the planning commission and the board. And that, although staff could give that workshop, we are practitioners of CEQA and really look to the professionals to teach the course. And Larry Jacobs with Ascent is very knowledgeable. He teaches classes at UC Davis, Extension, all over the state on CEQA, and we thought that would be a very positive way to go to make the most of that training opportunity. And then with the workshops, the outreach workshops for the EIR, again, having the consultant that is working on the EIR present to hear the comments was also very important. So, yeah, it is a high bill to pay, but the idea is if we're going to do this, let's do this right. Let's do it the most effective way, and that does have a price tag. And so, yeah, that's where it's at. That we could go line by line if you'd like, but that's the overall view.
Well, so there's 5 workshops altogether?
No, I'm sorry, there was 3. I kind of
Okay,
went all
so
over.
3, so we're at over $10,000 a workshop. So I'm still not following the budget because our hotels are not, charging that much. Our rooms are free. I really want the educational part of it, but $10,000, you know, I haven't even seen a lot of advertisement going out. I don't know what the outreach is or their expectation of how many people are going to show up. So I just think that the cost is really extremely high. And I'm sure the instructor is great, but he's not going to be here for 30 days. He's only going to be here 3 times. So I'm just having a hard time with the price tag, that's all.
So, just a clarification, Kim, does this increased amount also cover the workshops you've already done in addition to the upcoming ones? So there's more than 3? If I'm reading this correctly?
If I may.
Yes, please.
David Goldberg is here, and he actually has a much better understanding of the budget than I do. He's been working hands-on with the budget, so
Thank you.
I'd like to hand this
Sure.
over to David.
Left turn and
I think she's turning it over to you.
Thank you, Kim.
Good morning, David Colbeck, DOT, Environmental Compliance. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Were you here at the beginning? Okay, so you don't know the question. So is the price tag for these, I want the education, I want their outreach. I think that the workshops that is a great idea. I have no problem with that aspect of it. The price tag seems ridiculously high.
That's fair. One, apologies for being late. I wasn't sure this item was going to go this quickly. But yes, I believe part of the question was, were the earlier 5 meetings included in this cost? And they were. So if you're looking at the overall number, that includes the previous public scoping meetings that already did occur. The additional meetings were a request, I believe, of a number of folks that, yes, for the educational component. I tried to write this up in a way from the projections that the consultant gave us that would include the maximum cost, the most that they could think of spending, depending on how we want to configure the meetings themselves. So please consider there's a lot of flexibility in that number itself. And that in part is coming from Gary Jacobs, who's one of the principals of Ascent, as well as Pat Angel, who's the project manager. So whether we need both of them or only one of them, we don't know. We're working on those, how we're going to configure it. But coming to the board for a budget amendment, I didn't want to have to do that more than once. So I tried to just project it as best I could based off of some numbers that they gave me. And that is why that is a big chunk. It's including previous meetings as well as some flexibility for going forward.
Keith, did you have a question, comment?
No.
Supervisor Finley?
Okay, looking at your report, it says that the total amount of agreement increase is $9,882. And that's for 5 public meetings, including $92.50 for a planning commission EIR workshop, $7,500 for a board of supervisor EIR workshop, and $7,500 for CEQA. And that's increasing from $209,000 plus change to $243,000 plus change. That's pretty clear.
How that's broken down,
Yes, thank you. So that's item 3 in the report, Bobby.
So we're taking $34,132 additional. And you're saying that might not be totally utilized.
I hope not. My expectation is that we will find a way to not spend that money. But again, I tried to write this so that I wouldn't be coming to the board multiple times, so I just wanted to cover my bases. And I believe that I used the word conservatively. By that I mean the most that we would expect to spend on this, but I would hope that we would spend less.
I noticed that part of the agreement shows that it's for 100 hard copies of the EIR report. I don't know if there's a way of minimizing any cost there by digitizing it, or if the intention is to have the hard copies distributed, or if they're just going to be on site at the meetings. But
Yeah, the intent was that it would be distributed in physical form. The administrative draft is a truncated version of the document itself. And so we handed those out at the public meeting so that people could have access to it. The document itself is 500 pages plus many appendices. So having the truncated form in physical format for people who do not have computer access, internet or otherwise, it was prudent and useful in the meetings for people to be reviewing those and taking those home, specifically so that they could comment on the EIR itself when we were in the public comment period. So those 100 copies were used during the 5 scoping meetings that happened during the comment period.
Then are the 5 scoping meetings, by definition, under the deliverables of the original agreement as kickoff meeting, or is that different?
No, that's a good point. I'm actually using the word scoping incorrectly. Scoping is usually what occurs at the beginning of the process for CEQA. These were more public informational meetings that were a request of the board, I believe, to make sure that each district could have access to a conversation about the EIR itself. So, right, it's not scoping, it was public information, and those are the meetings that occurred in each 5 districts.
And those are the kickoff meetings?
No, kickoff would have been scoping. Kickoff would have been earlier in the process with a notice of preparation. That meeting occurred back in December, I believe. December.
And the number of meetings was at our request also, I believe.
I'm sorry, say again?
The number of meetings were at our request.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So we would like to pay for
And if I could point out, as were some of the upcoming workshop meetings as a way to discuss what the EIR is and how it can be commented on.
Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Chadwick, any further questions?
Thank you.
Supervisor Brooks? Any comments from the public? All right. Oh,
Yeah, I'd like to comment. John Brower from Junction City. And a couple things. I agree that $11,000 per meeting seems outrageous. It would be really nice to see a pie chart. I think this has been requested for months and months and months about expenditures from the cannabis program, licensing fees. I think that'd be very helpful for everybody, and I think I remember the chair requesting something like that from planning many months ago, early spring. Some sort of visual way to quickly see what's happening with those funds. It could be really simple, and this is another opportunity where something like that would be nice. The consultant failed to deliver on many points in the original contract. There's no initial study, there's no tiering, and I think we all know there's problems with the document. With that being said, if we are going to renew the contract and add to it, one of the things that probably should be adjusted right now is the December 31st, 2019 end date of the contract. We just wasted another 2 months from the point that the comment period ended until now that we're going to be having these additional outreach meetings. These meetings don't extend the public comment period. In fact, the public comment period is closed. So I'm not sure what good can come of these meetings, but it definitely pushes the entire project further out on the calendar, and I think it'd be prudent to change the end date of the contract now before we sign yet another contract extension with them past December 31st. Maybe even make it another year. It's really important we get this right and keep this momentum. I think many folks have put a lot of hard work in on this, and we must get this right on the rewrite and keep the momentum going on this. We need this sooner than later. So, thank you.
and John, just by the way, the budget books are out, so I would suggest there's always a hard copy at the administrative office to check for some of those information you're looking for in terms of budget questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
David responded.
Sure. Do you have any, I think there's some confusion on what those meetings were, so maybe you could clarify a little bit more, David.
I'm sorry, which meetings?
So there was the 5 workshops in June, and then we have a joint training next week. And then you have 2 workshops, well, they're not really workshops, what would you call them? That the board-
Regular meetings to discuss the EIR in front of the planning commission and the board.
So that's part of the process.
Yes. Honestly, it's above and beyond the process. This is I would say, a concerted effort by staff and the board and the public to engage this EIR in a meaningful kind of way. To, I would say, John's point of trying to make it a product that is as useful as it can be, as succinct as it can be. And yes, there's a lot of misinformation that is going around about what the EIR is and what it isn't, and what it can do and what it can't do. And these meetings are in part intended to speak to that type of misinformation. I take it to heart that John is suggesting extending the contract termination date. That, honestly, that could make some sense. I would like to wrap up the EIR as soon as we can, is my intention within reason. But to get back to the meetings, this is above and beyond what you would normally do with CEQA. And the public comment period of 45 days would usually end. Comments would be analyzed and you would move forward relatively quickly. This is a chance to extend that process so we can discuss with the public. The comment period itself has ended, but we have stated, perhaps not as publicly as we could have, that we are still accepting comments if they're late. It's just our discretion whether we include those in the analysis or not. And so the comments or the conversation that can be had in these workshops, in front of the Planning Commission, in front of the board, that can be incorporated as a part of the record, but it does not require us to go back and analyze what is being said. That would extend the process. So it's to speak to any issues that the public may raise, or the board or the Planning Commission may raise in a public format.
Thank you.
And if I could add, sorry, just at the end, I don't know if the math is wrong, but there would be 8 meetings total. So including the 30,000 divided by 8 doesn't get you to 11,000 per meeting. The meetings themselves, yes, they are depend on if they're grouped together, how much travel time is included for staff or consultants. But yeah, I don't think it's quite fair to characterize it that way.
Director Tippett.
Sorry, I just wanted to chime in real quick, Rick Tippett, Director of Transportation. When you have a meeting, there's a lot that goes into holding that meeting. You have to prepare for it, you have to prepare the handouts, you have to coordinate with staff, and then plus the travel time and everything else that you talked about. But it's kind of like I always refer to it like an interview on TV. They talk to you for 45 minutes for a 5-second clip. It takes a lot of work to put together exactly what you want to make sure that the message that you carry out is right. So there's coordination with staff, coordination with the board, and things that go on behind the scenes before you get to the actual meeting itself. That's what the cost is, the true cost of holding these meetings. The meeting itself is a lot of times relatively inexpensive. It's usually about 20 to 30% of the overall cost, but the background is what takes up all the time and the money and effort.
Thank you. All right, so with that, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve 2.9 as presented from planning and zoning.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Are you opposing? You are opposing, okay. Though it passed 3-2. All right, thank you, everyone. We still have, we're going to move on to reports before our 10 o'clock hearing. Reports from department heads.
They left.
No? All right. Say that again. All right, we'll move on to the. Maybe they don't have anything, though. That's okay.
It's okay, you want.
Oh.
I'm talking about it.
Oh, okay, so any other department wishing to inform the board on anything? All right, we'll move on to the administrative officer.
About the only thing is, we attended a lot of questions about our budget, so I just want to remind the public that next week on the 10th and possibly 11th, we will have our budget hearings.
They have nothing to report.
Thank you, John.
For those of you that continue to ask questions about our budget, this is a good time to come and look at it in depth, because we'll have our accountant here who will go through it. Thank you.
Hey, could people also meet with you, too, if they have some questions before next meeting?
Absolutely.
Yep, okay. All right, members of the board. Supervisor Chadwick.
On August 21st, we had a meeting at the EMS. Dr. Pence was present, and the board, I believe it came before us today, so the changes in the medic fund and going forward with that. Trinity County Fire Safe Council on August 22nd. Trinity County Opioid Safety Coalition on August 22nd. Tina, they would like to request a board to be put on the calendar for next year to be appointed to that, to have someone from the board be scheduled as part of a regular attendee. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of driving with Jeffrey England. We met up at 7 o'clock. We went to the Solid Rock, distributed food there. High and Palm people met us at Eschaton. We delivered food to Eschaton, Roderick, and Xenia, Van Dusen, and Mad River area. And we got done approximately 3:30. So that was one day of Jeffrey's food bank, and it was an incredible day. There are plenty of potholes that I'm sure Rick will be hearing about. So that wraps it up for me.
Thank you. Supervisor Brooks?
Only out-of-county travel was to, we had a cannabis ad hoc in there.
Supervisor Fleming?
Yes, 21st, 22nd, I was in Chico for North Tech, out of county travel, and 23rd, 24th, I was in Chico for Calgary HBC.
Supervisor Brown?
No out-of-county travel on the 22nd of August. Was invited to the Chamber of Commerce, the Weaverville Chamber of Commerce meeting, and that was very nice. It was good to hear the sides of the chamber and ways of moving forward. I've been attending the chamber meetings in Willow Creek as well, and trying to find ways of bridging the two chambers together a little bit and finding more was overlapping events or non-conflicting event planning for next summer and things like that. But I appreciated the invite to that meeting, and that was the only in-county travel I did.
Yes, as Supervisor Gross pointed out of county, which is just ready, meet with council for some ad hoc questions. All right, moving on to ad hocs, commercial cannabis ordinance amendments. Supervisor Gross?
Still no change in anything till the EIR is done.
Unless we do any cleanup. Unless there's administrative cleanup, but I would just echo Supervisor Grove's comments. Federal lands group, anything?
There's nothing new to report from my standpoint.
No.
All right. Retail cannabis group.
Still nothing new.
We, as Supervisor Brown indicated, we met with the chamber last week. There was a conclusion of a survey that we sent to the planning department regarding historical retail cannabis in Weaverville, and we have a meeting with this today, sometime following up this planning department.
All right. Still not 10, so I can't start the hearing yet. We'll do some quick items. There's not too many in county matters. We'll get, is Rick still here? Because I think we can take care of one of his items real quick. Maybe not. Right,
Maybe the grand jury.
that might take a little longer. I have to be ready to go at 10, unless we need a break. I thought he was here. He was just here.
Not
No?
out there.
He's what?
Not out there.
Huh, all right. Yep. Well, we can try taking 5.2, since Diane is here. Yay. Thank you, Diane.
No problem.
So 5.2, discuss and take action regarding denial of an elderly with low income credit and waiver of late fee relating to the annual solid waste parcel fee billing for fiscal year 2019-2020 on APN 025580-31-00. No impact to the general fund. $50 credit and a $35 late fee for the total of $85 from the solid waste enterprise fund if these fees were to be waived. All right, good morning.
Good morning, Diane Rayner, Deputy Director of Solid Waste. You may remember from the delinquent hearing at the last meeting that there was a question about an elderly low income that was denied. I had a chance to look into it and found that through the visits where the applicant had tried to present the proper documentation to get the credit, then it wasn't sufficient until documents that were mailed on the 15th of July. So they were received well after that date, which leaves our staff with, sorry, you didn't fit within the timeline of what we're granting the credits for, which means that in order to do that, it would have been different than everything we tell everyone else. So staff at this point has to default to denying it. At each time that the applicant was there, then they were reminded of the deadline of June 30, that in order to get the credit, it needed to be done by that time. It was also in writing in the documents we send out starting in April.
Okay. Questions from board members? No? These lights are working, so I'm just looking for, no, I've only did it once. Yeah. And you broke it. All right, members of the public, comments on this?
So she's ahead of the game for this year's taxes then, right? Or does she have to resubmit?
It has to be done every year.
Okay. Well, she did this year. This is this year.
It's based on the income levels for each. And the reporting that was done was for last year's, so this year might change.
She's on fixing.
Okay, what is the board's pleasure on this?
Motion to approve the denial request as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other further discussion?
So to be clear, this is denying giving her the credit.
Yes.
Yep. As presented by staff, their request, department recommendations.
I would move to give her the credit.
Is that your motion, a subsequent motion? Do I have a second?
Can we still discuss the topic?
I need a second to discuss.
I'll second that.
So I have the subsequent motion on the floor of, to give her the credit.
Does this just set a potential precedence that isn't being utilized otherwise or something?
I think in the past, it's to the board's pleasure, every year these items come up. Or go with staff's recommendation.
It's like how many a year historically?
Within reason, a couple days after the deadline, if there is good reason, then sometimes we allow them. If it goes past that, then there's usually a few each year that is beyond what staff can say is a reasonable allowance for the deadline of June 30.
They have to go to some reasonable measures to turn in paperwork and show proof, and they take some steps of goodwill to show that, you know, they're not just trying to get a cheap discount or a quick discount or something like that. I agree with Keith.
All right, so
I have a comment. If this is the board's pleasure in the future, why don't we redo our ordinance so that there is no time frame? And we can just drag this out for everybody, and there won't be any rules regarding this.
You know, a matter of 1 to 3 appeals in a year, that takes a matter of, you know, minutes to process, or
Obviously, how many minutes did this one take to deal with? How many days? How many visits, roughly?
And then took half an hour of my time in research at the office, and then my time here, and then your time.
How many visits were there?
Staff, there were 3.
visits to the site.
Visits to
The applicant.
to
Yeah.
explain and go over and review, and
the applicant came to your office, yes, what do you mean?
they actually came into the office and went through this with staff and was assisted.
Okay, any other questions, discussion on the subsequent motion? CAO and county council, perhaps you could, down the road, we had this issue last week, a list of late fees. There might be a better process, and also to handle something like this. You have some thoughts you could bring to us down the road? All right, so any further comments on the subsequent motion? Seeing none, please poll the board.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Finley?
No.
Supervisor Chadwick?
No.
Supervisor Morris?
Yes. All right. Credit is allowed. All right. So for now, we'll just take a break until the 10 o'clock hearing. Moving on to our 10 a.m. public hearing. 3.1, conduct a public hearing to consider introducing, waiving the reading of, and enacting an ordinance amending Trinity County Code Section 2.64.050 pertaining to solid waste fees, increase in revenue for solid waste enterprise fund, and the amount of approximately $600,000 per fiscal year. Good morning, Diane.
Good morning, Diane Rader, Deputy Director of Solid Waste. Solid Waste is asking to increase their fees for tipping at the gates and through the system. This is the first increase that we've asked for since 2013. And even when we had the 2013 numbers, then they were based on costs from 2010-11 fiscal year. So we're a bit behind on keeping up with what it costs us to run the system. We've added a few fees just to be more flexible in what we can provide in way of services at the site. And I've added a fee on fluorescent light tubes, because other than just being able to help cover the contractor cost of disposing of those, it can give us an opportunity to set up some sort of a thing for small businesses to be able to get rid of fluorescent light tubes also within what DTSC says is legal to do for small businesses. Hopefully this, if passed, will stabilize our disposal fees so that we can go on to other fun parts of the system that we need to work on and get back to what our focus is to comply with the state's measures overall. When looking at needing to increase the fees, then we have, I couldn't just do a chart that said, okay, there's this, this, and this in the way of what our divisions are, because they all interact. We have the landfill, which we have to maintain for 30 years, even though it's closed. And there's an expense and staff and equipment that goes with that for post-closure maintenance. We have the transfer sites that generally get about 63,000 customer visits per year, collecting about 55,000 cubic yards of waste. So we have an attendant per each area for whatever transfer sites you have. Then you need an attendant, you need an equipment operator to be able to move the trash once you collect it. And there are 9 transfer sites. Hayfork and Weaverville take 3 areas, so there's 3 attendants per each of those sites to be able to collect efficiently. Routes, we estimate 42,000 customer stops per year at 38,000 cubic yards collected. And that we need drivers that are commercially licensed and the equipment that is always needing repair or keeping up and replacement on it. That system shuts itself down when we don't have running vehicles. I think that about covers, the only other thing is when considering what sections of the system, if we were to have to shut any of them down, we'd have to collect in a way that we could maintain the Title 14 requirement to clear the sites within 48 hours, because we can't have trash sitting longer than that, and so therefore we have to shuffle everywhere other than Weaverville. Then we have to collect, then transfer, and then transfer again to haul, so it increased those costs, and that's where you would probably get your savings if you had to reduce the amount of the cost of the system. I think that's about it for my summary.
Is that the one plan you have if this is not approved? In order to bring your agency into viability?
That's the one that is the easiest to say. Since they all overlap, then you can come up with.
I understand. How long will it take you to come up with an alternate plan if we can't work with this today? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month?
I'd like to say 2 weeks, but probably a month.
Okay, and you'd be prepared to go through that and present it to us so that...
If that's what has to happen, then that's what I would do.
Okay, thank you, Diane.
Supervisor.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with some of your names on your, so I'm looking at your fees last time and your proposed fees, and so we have MSW, household waste. What's the MSW?
That's the municipal solid waste, which is your normal household waste.
So is that if you're picking up, or is pickup part of any of this?
This sets the base of what the actual trash moving through the system is. It doesn't have the calculation for the actual picking up of that part of it within this fee structure.
So there's no increase in the pickup, it's just the increase in how much garbage. So single strain recycle per cubic yard, that has a monstrous, is that?
That was the pilot program that we started out in Hayfork, which at the moment is not sustainable. We have reduced the fee on it to try and get people to use it, but we find that it's actually more expensive to recycle than it is to throw it away. And we need to therefore raise that fee to cover the same. I'm working on trying to get something refocused to be able to develop more of our streams for recycling in there, but that's probably an average cost.
So is that because China's not taking any of our stuff?
That's part of it, yes.
So if it would be possible that would go down at some time
If the market's,
if the
it's
market for
throughout,
steel or
like it's
whatever went up.
through the whole country is a problem at the moment,
Right.
but they're trying to work on alternatives for it.
So then tires, and this is kind of an informational thing, when I go to buy tires, they charge me to dispose of them. And even if I take them with me, there's some sort of state fund. Do you guys get access to that state fund? Or,
We do not, where we try and have tire amnesty events that can recycle funds.
so maybe that's where that money goes?
Part of it does, yes.
Okay. Let's see, that's all I have. I appreciate the fact that your white metal is not going up, because that's what seems to litter our roads. So that's my last question.
All right, Supervisor Finley, another?
Yes, just to point out that the requirements for the way we handle our solid waste and recycle is based on the California code. And it's a little bit more difficult for us to move our trash than it is for Shasta or any other county really around, except for maybe Modoc and a few others that are out there. So we're in a very specific position where we have to comply, and compliance is going to become even more mandatory with organics and a few other things. So we either provide the service or we let the state probably sue us.
So just for a little more clarification for me and the public, the pickup, for those who receive pickup, are their fees going up? Do I see it?
They'll see their monthly fee going up because the waste portion of it is increasing.
So that's $24, am I reading that right?
Yes,
Okay.
$24 a yard.
And then, of course, the annual amount is, I don't see is increasing. The $100 annual.
No,
Okay.
it's not, I can't use it included here.
And then I also don't see that the per bag charge is increasing.
It does, it's a calculation. If you look at the other sheet that's with this, that's the justification page. Then there is a breakout that shows, it starts with the cost per ton at $240. Then a cubic yard is 24. Then you have a 15-gallon, which is your kitchen bag, at $1.90.
Where's that?
33-gallon.
It's the other,
In here?
the second page.
I'm going to take your word for it.
It's more like a chart.
Yeah, all right. I'll keep looking while you explain.
A 33-gallon bag will go up to $3.80 each, and a 45 will be $5.20.
Okay. Which is not a significant increase. All right.
Technically, it would help with the state's means to reduce our waste, and you can save money by finding diversions and reuse options instead of throwing things away also.
All right. That's it for any questions. Anybody else?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I know you're really thrifty, and so I'm sure you went at this as a means to correct deficits. Now, in your calculations, do you feel that this is going to be sustainable for seeing in the future, or do you think that these will even be going up? Is this going to cover us for a while, in your opinion, or do you think this is a short-term fix?
There is, the fees reflect costs that change constantly, and it sort of depends on what all of the economies are doing around it. Like the one that we're doing now roughly comes out to like a 5% per year is what it's increased if we went to have done it every year instead of saving. I would think that there's some sort of adjustment, but there is a time where I would imagine that we can look at it and see if it goes down also, so we can fluctuate it back and forth depending.
Supervisor Chadwick, I've actually worked with Diane a little bit, and we're going to be going through the budgets and not only with solid waste, but all fee departments, rather than putting the board in the spot every 5 to 8 years to have to make these significant increases. What I'm recommending is we go through our budgets and we make some proposals to maybe do on the cost of CPI or whatever, 1 to 2% per year, and then evaluate every 5 years to see if where our target is. Are we above or below, reduce our fees, or do we change them? Rather than doing this it's very burdensome and uncomfortable for the board to have to make large increases every 5 to 8 years. So the thought that you're going with is what we're looking at right now.
Thank you, and I just want to plug the Amnesty program. It does an incredible amount of cleanup over on the Hayfork side, so I'm really glad to see that staying. And at one time, I believe we used to do that with metals too, so just putting a plug in, I appreciate it. I appreciate you saying that, Dr. Coons, because that's exactly where it's going to see not just a short fix, but how we can. Thank you. More questions?
All right. So now I'm looking at that 33 gallon, because I'm used to doing that, and it's a little bit more increase than I thought, so, but I totally understand why you need to do it. All right, John.
I think my only complaint that I have is that I went with my aunt in Trinity Center to the transfer station there, and she had 10 33-gallon bags. If I had known that they were going to charge her per bag, I would open one of them and put them all inside of one bag. So, I mean, there's got to be some other way of looking at this, because when you have a 33-gallon bag that has this much crap in it and you charge a full amount for it, you're screwing the public.
Normally,
Is there an option of going over scales too?
there's scales at Weaverville, or you can always have the loads measured in cubic yards instead, so that it's not a bag fee.
I have a trash can, I kind of stomped it down. Rick Tippett, Director of Transportation. You asked about the tire fees. What that does is that goes to Cal Recycle and comes back as tire-derived aggregate, which is essentially chunks of tires that they grind up. And we're going to be using quite a bit of it here in a little bit to do things like High and Palm Road slide repair, because the material is substantially less in weight than it is for the soils that had slipped out. So what happens is you can put back a much lighter section of land where you had to slide, and actually it holds up better on the hill. And so to give you an idea of counts, we're talking 700,000 to 1 million tires that we can lose in a slide such as High and Palm. And yes, it is wrapped up and covered and contained, but that's the program. When you pay those fees, those go into grant programs that DOT can go after to get that material. And they don't pay for the material, they just pay for the delta between what it would be to buy rock versus what it is to buy tire-derived aggregate. So I just wanted to let you know about that program.
So will that be a cost savings to you, or would the...
No, it'd just be a wash. It makes it, it's actually more expensive, the grant programs, just to make it a wash.
Okay. And anywhere else in the county you think you're going to be doing this? Or this is the first one, right?
This is the first one, but there's other locations that we try. I have used tire products on different jobs throughout my career, and it's anything that I've used that's either rubberized asphalt or some sort of tire-derived thing. I've been very happy with the product, especially it makes pavements a lot quieter. The only reason why I don't use it up here is you have to have it at an extremely high temperature coming out of the plant, and we're just too far away to get it to put down in the ground fast enough to keep the temperatures. So,
Who provides it? What kind of plant is it?
the tire-derived aggregate comes from actually a company that chews up the tires. I forgot the
batch
name of it.
plant up and
But
chew it up here?
the batch plants, usually it's from, the one that I'm most familiar with is the Tykert rubberized batch plant that they use, but Tykert's not up here. But I do know that Reading uses the product. But again, my problem is you have to be within about 45 minutes to an hour from the plant so that you can get it out to the job site and get it down before it loses temperature.
That's about where it's delivered on High and Palm Road then.
Yeah, I would love to use it, but I can't. And it's just, there's a lot of features of it. Drives much quieter, and it's actually got what we call self-healing process. As cars drive over it, if it cracks, it actually heals the crack. Rubberized kind of rebinds, so it's really
You
nice.
almost made a presentation out of this.
I know, thank you.
Well, I just want to let you know where the fee went and how we try to use it at DOT to offset that cost.
Thank you, Rick. It was informative. And I'm sure Supervisor Grove now has a fully informed answer for your tire question. Okay, any other questions from the public? No? I'm going to bring it back to the board. What is the board's pleasure?
Madam Chair, I would like to recommend that on 9.3.1, we take the staff's recommendation that the board introduce waive the reading of and enact an ordinance amending the Trinity County Code Section 2.64.050 pertaining to solid waste fees.
Second that.
All right. Please pull the board. Oh, sorry, we have a bit of a discussion.
So Margaret, in fees can be raised in one meeting, there's no second meeting, and no chance for the public to find out about this and then come back and complain.
Well, it is agendized, so there is an opportunity for them to come back and change and complain. If the fees are based on a calculation of actual costs, it's different than such as a tax, which would have multiple meetings. So yes, correct.
All right. Any other questions, discussion? All right, pull the board, please.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Chadwick?
Aye.
Supervisor Burrows?
Yes.
Supervisor Finley?
Aye.
Supervisor Morris?
Yes. All right, thank you, Diane. All right, we did 5.2 already, so we'll move on to 5.1 and then we'll wrap it all up with Rick. All right, 5.2, approve the board's response to the following grand jury, I'm sorry, 5.1, thank you. Approve the board's response to the following grand jury reports, cannabis ordinance development and complaint process, and Trinity County road maintenance issues. All right. So, let's see. We will start with the cannabis complaint, etc. Now, Margaret, can we don't take them together since they're listed as under the same item? Or just approve or not under each? Slide 1.
Yeah, I would take them each as individual items,
Okay.
just so we can have a clear record for going forward.
All right.
So we can count this first?
Yeah, this is listed first. Just take it as that. I can't get to this. Maybe I can. Yeah, I can't get to it. That's my, but we can go ahead without it in front of me. All right, thank you, because it's not. Okay, thank you. All right, so this was my response to their kind of two separate items in one, but I addressed them both under just the three items, three recommendations, I should say, is all they were requiring. I probably did offer some more information that they weren't aware of. So with that, I would answer any questions.
Let me just point out there is on your letterhead, there shows it's vacant on Street 4.
What?
Last year's. Did I miss a meeting?
I don't know where that, how bizarre. So is our letterhead?
Is that a recommendation of council?
It's been nice, Jeremy.
I'll switch with you. I'll be more than.
Thank you, Supervisor
I
Groves.
mean, that takes intentional adjustment.
Yeah.
So Tina, you will put that on current letterhead? Yeah. Thank you. We're gonna tell you later, but the cat's out of the bag now. All right, thank you. I totally didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Okay, go
You have
ahead.
it?
Yeah, and we'll just share if you need
Oh,
some.
no. I have it.
I just can't. Yeah, all right,
There
that
you
works
go.
better, thank you. All right, questions, comments? Before I open up to the public?
Sure, I'm not necessarily happy with this one. I think you really gave out way too much information instead of just answering their questions, it almost is as though you took it personally, which I preferred you.
Well, I just think there was
I understand, Judy.
misinformation and lack of
I
information
get
and
it.
confusion. So you'll see on 2 and 3,
It was a lot more concise.
it was pretty clear cut and not a lot of confusion in the report on those last 2. So you'll see that 2 and 3 were pretty, a lot shorter.
Yeah.
But I understand.
Okay.
I wanted to take the time, but it's necessary.
If you felt it was necessary, then
So it was clear.
it shows.
All right.
Does this help move forward dissolving ad hocs, or saying that you haven't really been working on the cannabis that much, and
We're in a holding
the
pattern.
right, the EIR is kind of really up to staff, and will be presented to us without necessarily having the cannabis ad hoc deal with the EIR.
Well, as we mentioned, we had some cleanup on administrative stuff, and right at the time of the EIR, we were ready to launch into stacking and weren't able to,
But
so,
you're looking forward to the EIR for stacking,
and concurrently, yeah.
so you should be anxious to get that done.
I see it coming up soon, yeah,
I would caution you concurrently.
yes,
Stacking cannot go forward until the EIR is complete.
Correct.
You're
That's
right.
my understanding.
And then at that time, the document will have a standalone, either name deck or EIR along with it. But from an ad hoc standpoint, I would say that that is close to ready to go, and that besides the administrative cleanups that have been requested by departments, that should pretty well.
Okay, it still needs the 2 of you to conform that and work on it instead of having staff.
I think at the moment, yeah, unless, go ahead, Keith.
Well, staff is part of
Right.
that.
Yeah,
I
we
understand.
meet with them.
And I think it's,
Do they still need your guidance? Is that's what you seem to indicate?
I would say, and maybe that's a question that Kim can answer himself, but since there's been quite a bit of work done, it's close to being just turned over to them.
Yeah, we're
And,
close. The answer to your question.
There's not much really happening. So it's just a matter of time. If
Turn it over to them and let it go.
we were very close to that.
We're very close to that. So,
Okay.
all right, any other comments, questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
So is there a way to accept some of the recommendations, but not all of them?
Yes. And how would that format?
If you want to make a multiple motion where you propose removing sections, that would be acceptable.
Yeah, there's only 3.
So
Paragraphs, that's it.
excuse me? I'm sorry.
I apologize. If you would like to make a motion where you remove certain sections, lines, paragraphs, that's acceptable. We'll just have to take note of that. That should pass.
Well,
Bobby, if this helps, I'll make a motion not to approve this as presented.
Well, I'm wondering if if I can just ask a question
Okay, go
before we
ahead.
do that.
I'll back off.
So on the recommendation on R1, I like the grand jury's recommendation more. So can I make a motion to approve with the grand jury's recommendation for R1 and then Judy's R2 and R3?
Yes,
Okay, then I make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
You got a second?
All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of discussion.
Okay.
As we've talked about as nauseum about standing committees, and we retail obviously crossed that line into a standing committee. That in the past, these have not been very successful. This is absolutely not what John has been pushing for a long time. He's pushed for, going to just having staff do this and not have 10 or 14 people being part of this, which at one point I do have, if it's the wish of this board, I do have a plan to put a 14-person committee together. And I have the different special interest groups that would be part of that. But as we round this out and finish this off, it's just absolutely ludicrous to me to sink the ship when we're just about ready to dock and call it a day. I will go back to the GPAC. And again, you've heard this story a bunch of times. It was 14, 15 people, and we spent $250,000 for a mission statement. And, these just rarely work. And so going to a monstrous standing committee, I think, would be bad for the Grove community. I think it would be bad for the county. And I guess I'll just leave it there.
I would echo your same comments. We're close to the finish line after developing a whole program. You have some important EIR stuff that is coming up on a few levels, and the program has been waiting on stacking for a year. We thought we could get stacking done under this EIR, but we had to wait. So I think there's 90% finished, and to throw it out is ludicrous. And I will just echo what Keith said. We saw what happened with the GPAC. We saw what happened with that other standing thing and paid for our fair share, which didn't go anywhere. So I think, we have a new planning director. She is a quick study. She will help us get through the finish line. And there's a plan, as you heard today, about the EIR as well. So
On that note, I'm willing to make a subsequent,
all right,
if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Okay, subsequent motion, accept the item as presented with the exception in recommendation 1, instead of following the grand jury recommendations of putting together a standing committee, we simply dissolve the cannabis ad hoc committee and do not go with the standing committee and allow staff to take it over and move forward.
So should we do that with all ad hocs?
We're not discussing all ad
I'll
hocs
second
here,
that.
but okay,
So just for clarification, the ad hocs we're referring to are all cannabis-related ad hocs?
yes.
Including the ad hoc related to legislation?
That was part of this. Legislation got moved into this.
I just want to make sure we get the
There's
right.
that, that's not even listed, but it is.
Well, I'm just asking what the motion
Yeah.
was, so I want to make sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So that does away with retail, it does away with the,
No.
it does-
Only on this report. I'm only referring to this item.
This would
item
be
is-
cannabis ad hocs, which would be retail.
So it's enjoined on our agenda, and you all report out as one unit?
Well, if you're saying dissolve the cannabis ad hoc committee, there is no such thing as the cannabis ad hoc committee. Right now, the cannabis ordinance amendments.
I know, that was changed when,
So we have two cannabis ad hocs.
okay, you know what? I'll go with getting rid of all of them.
Okay,
Fine.
I was
Knock
going to
yourself out.
identify 3. We've got cannabis legislation, cannabis commercial, clarification, and then cannabis retail. Those are the
You
3
got
we
it.
have today.
Yes, ma'am.
Just want to make sure the motion.
Does your second still hold?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Margaret, just for clarification, it's not that needed, but the legislation part did get folded into this current one.
Thank you, I didn't know that.
So we did that in January. That was a separate ad hoc, and we just threw that into this one, so.
For the record, just so it's on the record, the grand jury report was specifically for the cannabis cultivation, even though I'm using words they didn't. It was specifically named what supervisors. But I will second John's, and I'll leave it just so it's easier.
Yeah, and I'm just asking for clarification.
Yeah, right.
And it doesn't matter to me which way you go.
So knowing we have some upcoming deadlines, I hope you know, that's taken into consideration some upcoming deadlines that we all know about.
Can the motion on the table be shared again?
What I have written is, the motion is to adopt the report as written, with the exception of accepting the recommendation to dissolve the cannabis ad hocs related to retail and commercial cannabis.
And it would turn into a standing committee at that point, or?
No, well, that would be the first one. The second one has no standing committees. Second motion is just to dissolve.
And I'll throw a third one on.
Okay? Okay.
Since this has a monstrous impact into the cannabis community,
It does.
and would, in all reality, slow down the process, I think that I would ask that we would continue this item so the cannabis community has a chance to make comments at a later date.
Yeah, this is an agenda, this is such a big matter.
All right, so I have a motion, do I have a second for continuation?
Just for clarification, was it to approve the report as written and agendize in the future a discussion regarding ad hocs?
No, it was to continue this whole item to a later date.
I'll second that.
All right. Any more subsequent items? Motions, I should say.
We're done, we can't do any subsequent. So.
Yeah. can we just
Well,
call
Three's
it
our
a-
top?
Threes and that's
All right, thank you for that
And we can
clarification.
still discuss all three of them?
No,
Just the
just have
last
the
one.
last one, right?
So
Unless that
by
doesn't pass.
pushing it back, is that
You
going
can discuss
to?
it, you can discuss everything at
Oh,
this
we
point.
can?
Yep, you
Okay,
can.
I thought we only had to discuss the one, the most recent.
It's all the same topic, so you
Okay.
can continue to discuss the topic. We will take the third one first. though.
Okay, we are taking the third one first. Unless we have a vote on it, then we're done.
So in name of not delaying the process, is by pushing this back, you gonna delay the process, or is that still gonna allow the ad hoc to do whatever is scheduled to be accomplished?
Right,
No changes.
no changes. So I have a motion to continue this item, and I have a second.
I have a point of order.
You
Is this
can-
pushed back your 90 days
90 days.
To respond to the grand jury.
response to grand jury?
I don't think so, because we're,
I believe the grand jury, when it asked you to do it in July, asked that we do it now in case there was any disruption, that it would still meet the time frame. It would be in July, I think.
so any other comments on the continuation item, motion, I should say?
No comments?
Public,
I would like to.
or any of the other motions, I should also clarify.
Supervisor Groves is absolutely right. This would be a giant catastrophic blow to the program that's already evolved to this point, to switch horses mid-river on this, especially when we're so close to the other bank. I strongly encourage to continue this item to a future date and agendize such an important item if you're considering dissolving the ad hocs. And going some other path. I don't think it makes any sense to dissolve the ad hocs without something else already in place to take over from that moment. So I strongly encourage you all to continue this item to a future date and agendize it properly and hopefully continue down this path. Thank you.
I think
John.
Supervisor Finley has a question.
I have a question for you. Who do you think, if this were to go through and be handed to staff to run, who do you think is going to take it over and run it?
Nobody.
If this is taken and handed over to staff to perform and finish, Who do you think's going to take care of it?
It won't happen. Our county planning department can't do this. No way.
CAO?
There's no way.
I resent that. CAO?
It's hand over, my department will.
You know
sign
nothing.
Together and move forward as directed.
John, Supervisor Finley, I'm not sure, I mean, you frequently mention in discussions about how our county, our broke county,
And
comprised
we have a
our-
new planning director this time.
an
and
awesome one too.
Terrific, so let her run with it.
She knows nothing about the cannabis industry or about the events that got us to this point through this very rocky process. She's getting up to speed very fast. She's a brilliant woman. She brings a depth of knowledge and experience to this important subject. But to add one more thing like that onto her plate right now would be catastrophic. And the industry input is essential to this
The
process.
industry input I see is here okay, thank you, thank you.
I strongly encourage the continuance of this item so this can be done in a thoughtful, methodical way instead of sinking the progress that's made thus far, unless that's your goal.
I do want to make a point of clarification, because I believe I may have been not clear on this. This item today is to discuss only approving the report and accepting the recommendations. If the board were to approve item 1 or item 2 and accept the recommendation to dissolve the ad hocs, that wouldn't be done today. We would have to agendize that for the future. We would just be writing back to the grand jury that it's our intent to accept your recommendations. It still would need to be properly agendized. So I just want to make it clear, today is not the day to dissolve it. Today's the day to make the recommendation. Yeah, but it would be the board expressing to the grand jury that it would be your intent to dissolve it at the next meeting. I'm just explaining that so we don't walk out of here thinking ad hocs are dissolved today.
No, I don't think anyone did. If it was approved to continue, I don't think it would.
Even with item 1 and item 2, we would put it back on the agenda for the next meeting.
So,
Could you please read back the last motion?
The last motion is to continue this matter to the next meeting.
Was it to the next meeting?
I apologize, it wasn't clear. Thank you for
there
that.
was no.
There was no, yes.
Right,
Would you want a date certain or just continue indefinitely?
It's first
make a motion and then.
for staff to decide when
So it's not to a
it's a
date certain?
proper time to allow the public to understand what's happening.
All right, I see. Okay. All right. So is that clear, that last motion for everybody?
It's just to continue it to not date certain.
We're tabling it to a future date that we don't know. That's my understanding.
Mhm.
So we're not agreeing or disagreeing, we're just postponing.
Right. Okay, so with that, we have a motion and second.
Call for the question. Okay.
Supervisor Brown?
Is that number 3? Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Finley?
Aye.
Supervisor Chadwick?
Aye.
Supervisor Holmes?
Yes.
And for clarification, would it be the board's pleasure for us to bring these back as 2 separate items? 1, to approve the grand jury report, and 2, to discuss the ad hoc committees, or would you like to maintain under 1 item?
One item specifically for the grand jury report. That's what this is about.
Understood.
That's
Fine. All right, moving on to the Trinity County road maintenance issues, grand jury report, which is still under 5.1. John, I believe this was your response.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything you'd like to add, comment, highlight?
We've gotten I've received a couple of letters, 2 letters, maybe 3 specifically regarding non-communication from the DOT from Hyann, CSG and other constituents in Hyann regarding the road in that section. Also from Southern Trinity regarding items that were non-communicative. People don't know what's going on out there, don't know what the future is, don't know really where their SB1 money is going to be spent now that that's moved forward. And that's why I've asked the board to move this forward to give direction to CAO to kind of help tighten up Rick and get him moving in the right direction along with giving him some time.
Questions on the report or John's comments?
Yeah, John, a lot of times you talk about micromanaging, or micromanaging.
Yep.
Why is this not micromanaging, telling the CAO to go hire someone, and not having the CAO decide that this is what needs to happen, and come to us and ask us to find the money to hire someone?
Actually, I think he would like to come either ask us, or actually he should just go take care of it himself as far as I'm concerned. I know it's kind of been on Rick's plate for a while to move forward with this, and I'd like to give him a little kick in the seat to get it going. And I guess I'd like the board's support to bring our DOT and allow Rick to do his job and move into doing his job. He has an opportunity here with some revenue to do a great job and to grab somebody to help him and possibly work with his succession desires.
I don't have a problem with that, except the fact that we're telling them what sort of personnel that they should have without us being told.
Actually, I did discuss that with Rick, and I have discussed it with CAO. And that's why I made these recommendations. I just didn't make them off the top of my head.
I'm not saying you may not off the top of your head, it's just very different than normally how you like to do business, so there's no shock by it.
And that's why the recommendations are there, because it's the direction I believe CAO would like to move, and also Director Tippett.
So in your one response is just to kind of update the board and the public on upcoming road projects as a result of SB1 money and where.
Right, just as the grand jury recommended. We haven't been getting a lot of information out of DOT. Past few years, we get information roughly once, maybe twice a year, and sometimes it's tough for Rick to stick to those because roads fall apart due to weather, and I think we need a little bit continued update. And right now, it's really the public that needs the information out there. Again, they have the SB1 money coming in and how it's going to be spent. In my conversation with Rick, I asked him who I should talk to find out how the public is updated and who maintains that communication on it. I named a PIO and a few other people, and he said, "That's me." I'm going, "Rick, you're director. You need to delegate a little bit more, I think," and that's part of the. He seemed to agree, but he's still reticent to let go of his child.
And I see that you mentioned report a problem webpage, which was
Which
started
we
about
have.
a year ago.
Right, and again, the person who, the problem comes in and it's dealt with, usually, I don't believe it's necessarily responded to, but it is dealt with the catalog. If there is a problem going on out there, we only use Twitter.
Right, that is a little bit.
Right, I don't know how many people are necessarily on Twitter. And also, the only one who seems to post to Twitter is Director Tippett.
Okay.
So that's why these recommendations were made.
Any other questions, comments, board members?
I appreciate the fact that we needed to implement a DOT assistant director. I actually thought we were going to fly that before this summer, and so I do
Correct.
think that Rick has too many things, he has too many responsibilities, and that burden should not be shared by one person. We need to be able to have him.
Even though he wants it. And he really tries to move forward.
So I have no further comments.
Okay. Supervisor Brown?
Nope.
Okay, members of the public wishing to speak to this? Okay.
I'm just going to tell you that I am in behind Palm CSD tomorrow.
You'll get me started,
6
I'll
p.m.
take you off topic again.
There has been some mitigating circumstances that has caused us to essentially delay or put off that hiring of the director, but we are thinking about it. But actually, the new cannabis planning director has substantially altered my schedule, and it's been very, I wouldn't say relaxing, but it's allowed us to get reprioritized on a lot of things recently, so things are very dynamic in the department, but we are moving forward, and we hear what the grand jury had said, and one of the things that we had wanted to implement with the SB1 package was a rolling community meeting where we went to all the districts at least once every 2 to 3 years to give them what the 3-year plan was for paving in that area, and kind of let them know. I mean, we're not going to be able to solve a lot of the problems out there, but at least we can tell them what we want to do and what we're going to try to achieve, because through SB1 we have the RMRA process, the rehabilitation, road and maintenance and rehabilitation account. And with that, we are supposed to keep a public involvement going so that we develop a program that the public's aware of.
And this is your opportunity.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? All right. What is the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion that we accept the response to the grand jury committee regarding the Department of Transportation as written.
Second that.
Okay. Full board?
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Chapman?
Aye.
Supervisor Finley?
Yes.
Supervisor Groves?
No.
Supervisor Morris?
Yes. Okay. I believe that is it for what?
5-3.
That is not it.
I think it's
All right,
good.
Thank you.
That was it for 5.
You're right, thank you. All right, 5.3, we're not done with you yet, but approve amendment under number 3 to the agreement with Lionakis, increasing the maximum cost of $545,500 to provide construction and bidding support services and to prepare a revised grading plan. $545,500 from the new jail capital project for a total of $2,091,050.
When we originally set out to do this project, we had hired a architect to provide services throughout design and construction. But at the time that we were going to do the design, we didn't really know what the construction window looked like. I knew I wanted to hire an owner representative to provide much stronger project management assistance, because I knew that we would all be stretched thin at staff level, so we need to have a very strong presence in that. And that's what's provided by Lenders Consulting. But I didn't want to execute the part of construction management through the architect until we actually knew what the project was going to look like at the end, not at what they thought it would look like at the beginning. We've gone over time, and now it's come time that we have switched over to the construction phase, and so we had gone back and I requested that they do a proposal to do the construction part of the project. Their end is that the contractor comes in with a lot of questions and specifically a lot of submittals of this is the lock set I want to use for all the doors, or this is the frame that we want to use, or we want to use this type of brick, or we want to have this type of material. And the architect goes through and verifies what was on the plans to what they have proposed, and verifies that it's the equivalent or better, or makes suggestions for modifications that need to happen. And then they're also there to deal with questions that are on the plans or issues that might arise as construction's going. So the money has always been in there. There's been $475,000 allocated through the original budget for it. It's just that we had never contractually bound that money to the architect, and now it's come time to do that. So we have that original proposal along with two very minor changes. One was to update the grading plan when the dump was, they got done getting all the material out for the solid waste facility. We had to go back and do just one final survey to make sure that the contractor had the correct grading plans and all the correct elevations, so that they had something to work off of. And then also, since I did not have the owner representative on board until close to the time that we awarded the contract, they were much more present in the bidding process, so they added a little bit extra to account for some time, for some extra work that they helped us with in processing the bid while we went through it. So that's one part of the change order. There's a second part of the change order which also was part of the original estimate that was done back by Sheriff Haney back in 2015, which is for FF&Es, which are furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And they have put in a proposal to go through and evaluate it for two sets of plans, or two different proposals. And essentially, the reason why we want to look at these guys to help us put this together is that there's a lot of idiosyncrasies to equipping a jail. It's not like going down to IKEA and buying a desk, because they can figure out 500 ways to make a shank out of it, and so you have to have very specialized equipment and know essentially what you're doing. What the thing is Lenacus is very known for putting together jail plans. So they not only know what's involved in the architecture, they also know how to outfit the jail correctly to get all the correct furniture and equipment and everything that's needed. Now, it does involve furniture, but it also involves things like the X-ray machine when you walk through the door, and some of the other specialized equipment that's going in there. So again, as I mentioned, there's two sets of plans. There's one for furniture and freestanding components, which would be desks, computers, and equipment, all that thing. And then there's another one for specialty equipment, which involves things like I mentioned, radar, or the metal detector. And so, again, that was the original overall budget for that was $550,000. And they came in and asked for, originally I believe it was $75,000 to do the design, and then the remainder would be available for the equipment purchase. After discussion, they came down to $62,250 to produce what we needed. And so again, that was all back in the original estimate. The one thing I do want to mention on the architect design, when we established the budget and where we landed, we're actually coming in about $84,000 under budget, although that's offset by other needs. But our architecture budget is actually a little bit less than what we originally set out for at the very beginning. And so with that, I can answer any questions.
Go ahead. So to be clear, Rick,
Yes.
this money is already budgeted.
Yes.
It's part of our 20 million, this does not increase our debt or that money that we have to find.
There are other items that increase that amount, but this was in part of the initial setup.
This, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that was clear?
Yeah.
I think that was,
Don't ask though.
We might have to cut a director of transportation assistant out.
did you have
That's a new
something?
system.
So, Rick, in one sentence, could you just, this 545,000 is already built into the budget as you just stated. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes. It was built into the original BOCC budget.
And so, what other things are beyond that we have to worry about?
Right now, there's really 3 big ticket items that still have no allocation to a fund. One of them is immediate need, which is the OSIP insurance. And that's $401,000. And then, of course, there's the remaining construction inspection that we had discussed in an earlier meeting, which is, right now, the need is, we have to produce $647,466. And then, of course, there's the water line that we've been discussing all along, which is $510,000. And then we have some miscellaneous utility connections that we've also been discussing, and road, which we had estimated that at around $100,000. And then there's some contract coordination that involves DOT that we removed out of the original BSCC budget, but we still have to do that. We had done $80,000 for design and $80,000 for construction. In the design area, we ran about $30,000, so we did have a slight savings in that area too.
All right.
And so, but we're still, from our need, we still need to produce 1.5 million to finish everything that I need inside and outside, with the exception of things that involve the dispatch center and communications. And those are still the sheriff's working through that with staff. We have the facilities to get the wires in there, but we have to make sure that everything that's gonna feed that building correctly for dispatch is actually done.
All right, I see. Great, thank you. Any other? Okay. Comments from the public? Questions? All right, seeing none, how would the board like to move forward?
Motion to approve as presented.
I'll second
All right. Pull the board.
Supervisor Choward?
Aye.
Supervisor Finley?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Morris?
Aye, thank you. Okay, we're moving into closed session, but I will read the items, and anyone who wishes to comment may. Closed session 6.1, Government Code Section 549, 56.8, Conference with Real Property Negotiators, APN number 024-200-10, 024-200-36, Agency Negotiator Rick Tippett, negotiating parties Caltrans, under negotiation, price and terms of payment. 6.2, Government Code Section 54956.8, Conference with Real Property Negotiators, APN 025-430-12, Agency Negotiator Rick Tippett, negotiating parties Tucker Trust, under negotiation, price and terms of payment. All right, we'll take a 3-minute break. Set, okay. For item 6.1, board gave direction to execute the right-of-way contract for state highway acquisition. And 6.2, 8.2, direction was given. Meeting adjourned, and we'll see everyone for budget hearing next Tuesday.